Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Book of Matthew series. Now we're on Matthew 13. That same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat by a large crowd gathered by him. So he got on a boat and sat down. All the people had stayed on the shore. Jesus used stories to teach them many things. He told them the story. A farmer went out to sow seed. While he was scattering the seed, some of it fell by the road. The birds came and ate all the seed. Other seed fell on the rocky ground where there was not enough dirt. It grew very fast, but the soil was not deep. When the sun rose, it burned the plants. The plants died because they don't have deep roots. Some other seeds fell among thorny weeds. The weeds grew and stopped the good plants from growing, but some of the seed fell on good ground, and there it grew and made grain. Some plants made 100 times more grain, some 60 times more, and some 30 times more. You people who hear me, listen. The followers came to Jesus and asked, "Why do you use these stories to teach people?" And Jesus answered, only you can know the secrets of only you can know the secret truths about God's kingdom. Those other people cannot know these secret truths. The people who have understanding will be given more, and they will have even more than they need. But those who do not have much understanding will lose even the little understanding that they have. This is why I use these stories to teach people. They see, but they don't really see. They hear, but they don't really hear or understand. So they show that what Isaiah said about them is true. Okay. Says, You people, you people will listen and listen. You will not understand. You look and look, but you will not really see. Yes, the minds of these people are now closed. They have ears, but do not listen. They have eyes, but they refuse to see. If their minds were not closed, they might see what they hear. They might see with their eyes, but they might hear with their ears. They might understand with their minds. They might turn back to me and be healed. Isaiah 6, chapter 6, 9 through 10 reference. But God has blessed you. You understand what you see with your eyes, and you understand what you hear with your ears. I assure you that many prophets and godly people wanted to see what you now see, but they did not see it. Many prophets and godly people want to hear about what you hear now, and they did not hear it. So listen to me of the meaning of the story. The farmer, what about the seed that fell by the path? That is like the people who hear the teaching about God's kingdom but do not understand. The evil one comes and takes away what was planted in their hearts. And what about the seed that fell on the rocky ground? This is like the people who hear the teaching and quickly and gladly accept it, but they do not let the teaching go deep into their lives. They keep only a short time. As soon as trouble or persecution comes because of the teaching they accepted, they give up. What about the seed that fell among the thorny weeds? It's like the people who hear the teaching but let worries about this life and love and money stop it from growing, but does not produce a crop in their lives. But what about seed that fell on the good ground? If the people who are teaching and understanding, they grow and produce good crops, sometimes 100 times more, sometimes 60 more, and sometimes 30 more. Okay, so this is, we're not finished, but I want to talk about this. So he's using a comparison about farmers sowing seeds, and he used like how some of them fell in all these places, and he used that, and then we'll get back to that. And Jesus uses why he uses these stories is that like he's talking about like well, stories are like pretty easy to understand with analogies and all that stuff, and then like you have to understand and we have to listen and hear to me, and then and apply to your lives. And he says he explains the story about the seed, and he was talking about how like the people fell on rocky ground. They accepted it, but did not let the teaching go deep in their lives. But they only keep a short time. What that means is that they're like, oh yeah, like I'll preach the gospel, and the persecution happens. They're like, God, why'd you do this? And they fall away. And then what about the seed? What they do is they don't keep in the faith, and then thorny weeds. Um, but uh, they hear the teaching, but the thing is the stress and the stress about the life and mammon stop it from growing, so it does not produce crops. And what about the following good ground? And this is the teaching and understanding they apply to their lives a lot of times, and then they will multiply it. Then Jesus in our story to teach them. Jesus said, God's kingdom is like a man who planted a good seed in his field. That night, while everyone was asleep, man's enemy came and planted weeds among the wheat and then left. Later, the wheat grew and the heads of grain grew on the plants, but at the same time, the weeds also grew. The man's servants came to him and said, You planted good seed in your field. Where did these weeds come from? The man answered, An enemy planted weeds. The servant asked, Do you want to go and pull up the weeds? He answered, No, because when you pull up the weeds, you might also pull up the wheat. Let the weeds and the wheat grow together until the harvest time. At the harvest time, I will tell all the workers about this. First, gather weeds and tie them together to be burned, and gather the wheat and bring it to my barn. So this is talking about the wheat and weeds. He was comparing it to God's kingdom, about wheat, and then the weeds grew, you know. And then they said, "Oh no, we should pull them out at the harvest time." And then God's kingdom, he said, God's kingdom is like a mustard seed. Is the smallest of all seeds, but the thing is, when it grows up, it will be the biggest of all trees. Yeah, exactly. And Jesus said, "Have a faith. You have a faith of mustard seed, and then and still enter the kingdom of God." That's how simple the gospel is. Use these stories to help other people understand them and to teach them and to get the full meaning of the prophets. I was speak using stories. I'll tell them things that have been secret since the world was made. Psalm 78 2 reference. And then he explains like a really difficult story. And he says, "The man who planted the good seeds in the field and is the Son of Man, the field of the world. The good seeds are the people of God's kingdom. The weeds are like the people belong to the evil one. The enemy who planted bad seed is the devil. The harvest is at the end of time. The workers who gather are God's angels." So he's talking about like how this conflict in our world works against the good and evil. He basically saying that like he's talking about like the end of time, and then he says, and he uses it. He says that the Son of Man will send his angels, and they will find the people who cause sin, all those who do evil. Angels will take those people out of the God's kingdom and throw them into the place of fire. The place of fire is the lake of fire, and then grinding and yeah. He basically describes hell. And they'll be in the kingdom of their father, which is the devil. He says treasure. God's kingdom is a treasure hidden in the field, and then he found the treasure. He says he basically said once a man found it, he gave up everything to buy it, to buy that land. And then he says it is also God's kingdom as a merchant looking for pearls. He found a very good pearl. He went and sold everything. He had to buy it. And then he also does know one comparison of God's kingdom is like a net that was put in a lake. And the net caught many different kinds of fish. They sat down, they threw away all the bad fish. Yeah, and then basically said like the angels would separate the evil people and the godly people. And then they would throw the evil people into the lake of fire. And Jesus asked disciple and all his followers, "Do you understand all these things?" And they said, "Yes, we understand." He had used many different analogies because it is hard to understand when you're not Jesus Christ. And then Jesus goes back to his hometown. And then he's the son of the carpenter, and he is Jesus carpenter. And he's talking about, isn't his mother's name Mary, brothers James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas? And then he says, people everywhere give honor to a prophet. So we should give honor. So he's saying that when a prophet's somewhere else, not in his hometown, people like him. But when he goes back to his hometown, people do not respect him or like him or get any honor. So same thing with Jesus. Kind of like that. Because he went everywhere, everyone give him honor. But when he came back with the Pharisees and stuff, they did not like him. Yeah, so Jesus now do many miracles there in his hometown because the people did not believe in him. Yeah, so this is just a whole thing about analogies with God's kingdom. It's pretty interesting. The more I read it, the more I'm more grateful for God. You know, He gave me so much understanding to understand His Bible and reading it with y'all. Thank you for taking your time to reading and listening to this with me. I'll do Matthew 14 tomorrow. God bless you all. Have a great day and happy school day to all you kids.